That said, the state is getting ready to enter phase one. Phase one at the state level, that serves really as a floor. Some of these rules can differ between municipalities, but Dave, I'll let you go ahead and kick that off.
Sure. Hey guys, this is Dave LaCerte here. I'm broadcasting from my kitchen table here in Baton Rouge. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm widely recognized as the favorite podcast artist here at the SNW Wednesday web chat. So thank you for tuning in. The governor did announce on May 15th that there's going to be a statewide order to be lifted on the stay-at-home order. And what does that mean, right? All we have right now are talking points given to the press. The executive order, which actually triggers the actual lifting of the stay-at-home order, has not been issued. We expect that to come down at some point Friday. Nothing like government doing everything at the last second, as we like to do here in Louisiana. But we do know some things and some framework. He went ahead and posted a lot of it on the executive website. That's gov.louisiana.gov. It's kind of redundant. But in the governor's press briefing on May 11th, he did outline some of these things which are going to reopen. Restaurants reopening at a 25% occupancy rate. That means that supposedly these restaurants are going to be operating according to the fire marshal's maximum occupancy guidelines of 25%. So in that, we do expect the governor's executive order to delegate a lot of the state's police powers to the fire marshal, for the fire marshal to issue regulations directly. The fire marshal has issued some schematics as to what should be proper seating in restaurants. They've also issued some really kind of curious guidelines as to what's inbounds and what's out of bounds. Curiously, they have issued guidelines that live music is going to be out for right now. So if you're a business that heavily relies on, patio seating, we got Superior Grill up here in Baton Rouge, we got Superior Grill in St. Charles. They usually have a patio band out there that seemingly you could do with some social distancing. That's going to be out of bounds for phase one, according to the Louisiana Fire Marshal. So stay tuned for more additional guidance as to what that means. Even in patio seating, it should be relatively straightforward, but even there, we're going to see some guidance that kind of muddies the water. It's going to be very, very murky. And good luck getting the fire marshal on the phone to give you any actual guidance on this. One of the questions we're always asked is, well, how the heck is this going to get enforced? And predominantly, who knows at this point? I know we've seen news out of Florida. A lot of people I see are vacationing there because they reopened the beaches, and they awfully look like they're not following that 25% guideline, which is in place in Florida. So we can foresee some of those things occurring here in Louisiana as well. Gaming institutions, casinos, video poker, those are going to be put into play, and the governor will delegate the ability for them to do so to the administrative guidance of those licensing entities for those casinos. I know a lot of people, that's their livelihood, that's their backbone of how they put food on the table for their families. So it's going to be important to have some guidelines from the individual casinos as to how they can open safely in accordance with the law. But then there's going to be some other institutions which are outside of the phase one. Institutions like massage studios, tattoo studios, things like fairs. All the church fairs are still going to be shut down. No licenses will be issued. Bars and breweries without food permits. So you might ask yourself, what the heck's the difference between me going to Tin Roof here in Baton Rouge or Urban South in New Orleans and going to the food truck and also grabbing a beer there? The issue is all in the license. So because their license is set up in a manner in which they don't have a Department of Health food permit themselves, they're not going to be able to reopen themselves. This is going to open the door for some very interesting and novel legal challenges to those regulations. So if you're one of those institutions, if you're interested in talking it over with us, we'll certainly be able to talk to you on a one-on-one basis, because those types of companies are going to be really interesting to kind of open up as to where a challenge may be had, where some wiggle room or some gray area might be found to make sure we open up your revenue streams, to make sure we lift some of these phase one guidelines safely and in accordance with the law. So give us a holler on that. We are going to have barbershops and hair salons open. So good news for Scott. You can go get that rag cut on top of your head.
Yeah.
Guys like me, it's not a big deal, right?
At least I have hair. Yeah.
Exactly.
So Dave, question. I mean, the fire marshal doesn't have people in every parish, does he? Like, how is realistically, how is this even gonna? How is he even gonna know that a business is open? Is it going to be like a tattletale system? Because
It's going to
that's the way I
be,
read it.
yeah, it's going to be like an internet meme system to where Karen somewhere is complaining about someone not operating in accordance with the law. And really, the fire marshal does not have the resources and capabilities to enforce these sorts of issues. So it's very interesting, and it's an unrealistic system, really, quite honestly. It's something that you really can't put the onus all upon the fire marshal and, God forbid, local law enforcement to enforce these regulations. They have other things to worry about. But the way this is rolled out is to be determined. All we have are the governor's press items. We do not have an executive order in place currently. How that gets rolled out and placed into effect, who knows? So to answer your question, Scott, is no one knows the answer to that.
So Dave, I mean, you were a cop, before you became a lawyer. If you're a street cop in Homa or in Terrebonne Parish or with the sheriff's office, are you going to be driving around looking for businesses that are open that don't have the right permits? I mean, do
That's
you
a
think
good
that's
question.
really a thing?
That's a very good question. In fact, a lot of the local police chiefs have actually done some Q&A on that. And the kind of the boilerplate issuance of guidance that a lot of small town chiefs of police have given is that they're not going to independently be going out looking to enforce these provisions. But if someone makes a complaint, they're going to be obligated to follow up with it. Now, what they can do as having police powers to actually do something about it is very, very much up in the air. So,
and all this is not to say that it's not a good idea for businesses to make sure that they're exercising appropriate social distancing and keeping people safe, because I mean, from a liability standpoint, but also from a reputational standpoint. If, like, for example, we represent the Urban South Brewery. If Urban South had a 500-person party, on the day that it reopens, and they can't get those 6 feet in between people, that might look really bad if there's an outbreak of COVID from that actual business, right?
absolutely. And in fact, it kind of gets into a lot of murky areas in the law. Like, what kind of legal liability does a retail merchant have if they reopen and they don't have the capacity or the staffing to enforce some of these provisions? Are they opening up their employees to workers' comp claims if any of the employees get sick? These are all novel issues in the law which don't really have a black and white answer right now. But
Right.
there's issues legally, there's issues from a public policy standpoint, and there's issues from a PR standpoint. Those all kind of triangulate into some weird Venn diagram to where no one knows what the answer is.
Keith, you
And
had
one
some thoughts?
important resource that's available right now is opensafely.la.gov. It can provide business owners that are reopening with some guidelines and some government recommended guidelines that can help mitigate some of that liability moving forward. Very good resource, and signing up on that site will give you updates as the guidelines change, because as we all know, guidelines are changing almost daily at this point.
Absolutely,
Right.
and you can actually register for e-blast there that the Louisiana state government will actually send you an update whenever it happens in real time. Of course, we're looking for, as lawyers, we're looking for that executive order so we can look at what the actual law is. Because like I said, all we have right now is press talking points.
And we had a question come in just now about employment and employees at working in businesses. This is something that was covered in one of our earlier Wednesday web chats with Susie Montero and Natalie Mitchell. But we don't think that employee claims for COVID infection are necessarily going to be covered by workers' comp. It's unclear. But we think that because it's an infectious disease, it's probably not like a broken ankle or a hurt back that is normally covered by workers' comp. And Dave, there's been some talk nationally and also in the legislature. I know you and I pay a lot of attention to what the legislature does. I'm about to spend 4 hours watching hearings today. Do you think there's any chance that the legislature puts in some immunity for businesses who maybe force, or maybe not force, but ask their employees to come back to work, and those employees then become infected with COVID-19?
I think that probably would be a wise thing to do. And you see some of those things on the federal level with President Trump giving immunity to the meat processing facilities. Of course, everyone's talking about the potential meat shortage, which was on the horizon. That's kind of an example the federal government has done to kind of nip that in the bud. I really don't see a high likelihood that the Louisiana legislature would take that up right now. The House comes back into session on Friday. I really don't think that they can kind of be so nimble as to get something together so quickly, but it probably would be a smart decision. I know that if the employees out there do contract COVID-19 and are out of work or are susceptible to be at risk for that, it may or may not be a comp related incident, but we do know that the Workforce Commission, to their credit, has listed that as not as a event which will not impact the rates for workers' compensation for those companies. So don't be worried that this is going to be something where you're going to see a big hit on your comp rates in the future. That's
Right.
one big piece of relief that the government, to their credit, really undertook and got out in front of. And that's a very good peace of mind for all these business owners right now.
Some states have even gone a little more aggressive with some of the proposed legislation, and that proposed legislation's included immunity even from patrons of the facilities, purely to encourage businesses to open up without concern that a lawsuit will shut them down months later.
Right. Because otherwise, as Susie Montero recently said, it would be like being able to sue your employer for catching the flu at work. It's kind of an interesting problem. Of course, obviously, COVID-19 and the flu are not the same thing. I'm not trying to equate those, but it's an infectious disease, not a injury. And so, our general advice to our clients has been to exercise diligence and care. If you have people that are particularly susceptible to COVID-19, you probably shouldn't call them back into work, right? If you have employees with, diabetes, hypertension, the elevated risk factors, maybe they're over 65, you have every incentive to continue to pay them or leave them on unemployment, but not have them at work. Wouldn't you agree, Keith?
Yeah, that would seem to be the case. Additionally, you have to make sure that the employees are there, have some sort of, you have protections in place for potential clients and customers as well who are going to be interacting with them.
Right. I recently went to Costco here in New Orleans, and they literally wiped down the thing for me as I was walking in, which was really great. So, we think that all of our clients, whether you're a client or not, you should implement some sort of, we can only accept this many people in our business. This is how we're going to disinfect the hard surfaces that everybody touches. We're going to keep the 6 feet away requirement. One of the companies that we represent has a large outdoor staging area, and they have actually spray painted X's 6 feet apart so that the people that are visiting their business will be 6 feet apart at all times. And those are the types of acts that you can take now as your business reopens to try and limit your liability later.
And Scott, I'll share another example of that. Is one of our clients owns a number of Anytime Fitness franchises. And what we've done is we've measured off and taped off the amount between cardio equipment. We've deactivated those equipment that's not 6 feet apart. We went ahead and implemented a disinfectant schedule to where every 25 minutes, a staff member has to go around and disinfect certain equipment that is still operational. Those are countermeasures that you can put into place to kind of cover your basis on things, to make sure you're compliant, to make sure you go above and beyond what the law requires, but basically what is good business practice.
Okay, let's move on to another topic. Dave or Keith, y'all have any other thoughts to share about the reopening?
Just keep an eye out for the executive order. I'm sure we'll put something up when that occurs. That may or may not be all encompassing as to what was released in the press points for the governor's office. So there may be some modifications. If you have a particular set of questions, my email is david@SNW.LAW. We have Keith with Keith@SNW.LAW. Feel free to reach out to me and shoot me a question offline for the reopening.
Keith, any final thoughts?
No, as the reopening is occurring, I would expect for the rules to rapidly change. as they react to, public reactions. So keeping up to date is going to be very important, and, we're available for questions.
Right. And we are available for questions every Wednesday. We're here at noon on Facebook and also on YouTube, uploaded shortly after. If you go to our website, SNW.LAW, you can see all of our COVID content. We have a chat bot on there that interfaces directly with members of the firm who are always monitoring it. So anytime, day or night, 24/7, if you have a question, we can probably help you. We may not be able to answer it because you may not be our client, but we can at least point you in the right direction. So stay tuned to SNW.LAW. Please take a look at that content and pass this on to your friends. Everybody stay safe, wash your hands, have a good week.
Take care.
Thank y'all.